And here we are, the first of the missions set in Cuba. We're in the end game now. It's gonna be brutal as it comes. And since the first two missions involve Natalia, it's going to be bloody frustrating, I can just tell. Granted, Natalia has a powerful revolver, and she's pretty accurate with it. Not to mention, she can take a bit of a beating from the enemy. Still, we're going to have to practically carry her to the finish line here, not rely on her as a partner of some kind. And don't get me started on what we're going to have to deal with in the next mission. I'm already looking into how to get Game Shark cheats to work on an emulator before even trying that. It's got me so paranoid that I outright want a safety net before we so much as step foot into the next mission. Considering how this game handles both Xenia and Natalia, I can easily do without either of them if I could. And I'm not talking about graphically speaking. It doesn't matter to me how they look, especially in a game this old. It's how they move and act when the action starts. Natalia is essentially a liability that we have no choice but to work with, and we fail if she dies. While Xenia's only appearance in this game has her using a very rapid-fire gun in one hand and a grenade launcher in the other. And she's a bloody damage sponge on top of that. So, yeah, she's gonna be a pain in the ass to deal with. She's one of only 2 encounters in this game that could be considered a boss fight. And this isn't the kind of game that can really make a boss fight feel especially amazing. Great, so not only can the enemy soldiers shoot us from the borderline of the game's draw distance, so can the turrets. And it's not like the turrets will trigger our automatic aiming. Pretty cheap trick to be fair, but this is close to the end of the game. If you're gonna be pulling underhanded crap on the player, it makes sense to do it the closer to the ending we get, so when we succeed, it feels all the more satisfying. It doesn't make me a fan of that kind of trick, but at least feels a little understandable under the circumstances. Well, at least it sounds like Natalia is trying to shoot at some of the guys we just can't see at the moment. I suppose that's better than her just being a complete deadweight, like usual. Well, at least I was right about that big set of pixels being a turret. It doesn't change the fact that we're having to fight and arrange the game can't really render what we're shooting at all that well, but yay me. Well, you're certainly willing to talk shit about people you're killing, even though this is the first time you've ever handled a gun and shot at them. Another reason I don't feel as fond of the N64 version of Natalia compared to the movie version, especially since she's oddly chatty in a game that has no voice acting, so every time she says something, I look at what she says when I should be paying more attention to the fog that denotes the draw distance, and hope I can see something through it. Granted, it's not as bullshit as the enemies that can see us through the foliage in Medal of Honor Allied Assault, or the snipers in that same game, or worse, the snipers in Halo 2, but it's not exactly endearing. Okay, that bridge is where we have to worry about Xenia, or at least the area just beyond it, which also has a turret or two to support her. figure on the other side of the bridge. She typically tries to cross over to our side. Am I misremembering? Well, at least we managed to kill her without her killing Natalia. That's my usual issue in this mission. If we're lucky, we might even be able to get this mission done in a single run, but I somehow doubt that'll happen. For some reason, I remembered more enemies between us and the caves, especially after we crossed the bridge. I also remembered the soldiers with assault rifles being more accurate, but these things are clearly not in the same league as the ZMG. Well, at least in the caves, we can stop worrying about enemies shooting us from outside the game's draw distance. Though apparently that doesn't mean we should stop looking in all directions. Bloody hell, please tell me I'm not gonna die this close to the end. That does it for the turrets. And the local weapons cache. And all we need to do is get to the elevator. Thankfully, this gun can shoot through the metal crates to a degree. Son of a bitch. One of the only times it makes sense for the enemy to throw grenades at us. And they finally do it when it makes sense. And don't tell me they're just gonna keep on coming until we pass an invisible line. I'm way too into the idea of clearing the way so Natalia can get through. Speaking of, where the hell is she? I mean, sure, I'm glad the grenades didn't kill her, but I'd rather not... Oh, that's where she is. Right, forget I just said that. Trying to be, but it's hard to be careful when they just keep coming from the very place we need to go. Son of a bitch. Literally killed just yards from the end of the mission. And based on our death animation, they struck Bond right in his most infamous weakness. I suppose that's appropriate, considering this was a mission with 2 women that Bond wasn't allowed to bang in this game. But then, Xenia is the only woman I've ever known that Bond does not want to end up in bed with. Right, excuse me while I fast forward through everything other than the ending cutscene. We were so close to the end in that first run, and it's only because of my usual mentality to clear an area out before moving on that we stayed there long enough for the enemy to wear me down and finish me off. Besides, it's not like it's gonna feel quite as tense with me going through the forest like this when we've already done it once in this clip. Definitely appreciate the fact that these enemies aren't all that accurate, considering the enemies we had to deal with at the tail end of the previous mission. Though we'll have plenty of bastards with ZMGs to worry about once we get to the next mission. And the 2 missions after that. Okay, so the assault rifle doesn't sound all that different when it's sped up. Didn't expect it to, but still felt worth noting. And now to deal with Xenia again. God damn it, Natalia, fall back! I don't care how badass you think you are. Explosions hurt! Once more into the caves. Again, very annoyed with myself that I managed to get killed when the only thing we had to do at that point was run to a goddamn elevator. It's like doing well on a test but forgetting to write your name on top. Ah, damn it. I wonder why these guys are more willing to shoot us on the ladder this time than last time. As a side note, is Natalia somehow explosion-proof? Because I have some distinct memories of playing this as a kid, and Natalia getting constantly slaughtered time after time in this mission. But for some reason, in the 2 takes I recorded, she's like a walking tank, and it's Bond who feels fragile in comparison. Of course, part of that is probably the fact that the enemy keeps shooting at Bond, and mostly ignoring her. Either way, I appreciate the bit of mercy before we move on to the far more annoying mission where we have to watch her back. A mission that, in many playthroughs, I just skip altogether due to it being such a pain in the ass. As much as I appreciate the sight of Bond and Natalia shooting outward as the elevator closes, it doesn't change the annoyance that we're not going to have that assault rifle at the start of the next mission.